everyone, it is Mariah from PM Artist Studio. I am the M. So today you're going to see right here what I'm doing is laying out playing cards, getting ready to turn these into an accordion flip style journal. Basically what I did is took some paper there, ripped it up. We love this paper. It's just a huge craft roll, white. And just basically taking these and gluing them to the main run. Then I had to kind of piece one together because it was off a little bit, so I went ahead and pieced it together. And this is going to be the back side. Very quickly, and gluing. Lots and lots of glue. I left pieces on the end, and I'm very happy that I did because I ended up using those at the end, and you'll see that later on. There, I'm just kind of testing out some different folds. That ended up being kind of a double gate fold, so that is what it is at the final project. And one of the other things is it's just trying to figure out, you know, top and bottom, how it's going to flip because it's kind of an interactive piece. So it really turned out that like I could have done it either way. And if I had to do it again, I think that I would go back through and redo and do everything face up or top up versus having it flip and turn. Right now I am just using some Mr. Huey's to distress everything. Obviously it worked a lot better on the middle craft paper, which was great. That was the main thing I needed it to work on anyway. It did soften up, and you'll see that one by the 5 of clubs, I believe that is, where I had to patch it in. And now I'm just taking some of the Louisa Heinzel's, I believe it's the Steampunk Flying Floral, something like that. The link will be below. Sorry, I couldn't remember exactly what it was. I know it's the Steampunk set. And what I had done is actually brought it into a different program and shrunk everything down to have the pages fit the playing cards. And what I did with that one is just kind of keep it all together in the 3. And then I was trying to figure out how I wanted to flip that up. So that's why I cut it and then pasted it on the back upside down. So that way when it folds up, everything is towards the top. Just trimming out some of the edges. I did it a lot of different ways. I used the crocodile in some instances, and then sometimes I just trimmed it. It worked out really nice. Love the Posca marker. I went a little dark in some areas on that, but it turned out okay because I was able to then get some other things done. So now I'm just taking a look at each page, tearing out certain things. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. I'll chime in when I see something that may not be. I really loved that fish head. And there's actually, I think, a total of 3 fish heads. I ended up flipping the actual image because I wanted some heading in or the opposite direction. We're kind of crazy about that sort of thing. It's like things all pointing towards the middle. Keeps you engaged. So this was some test paper that P had made with the brush hose. Love this stuff. One thing to keep in mind is the glue and other things reactivate it, so it will bleed out. Sometimes that works to your advantage. Sometimes it ruins something that you worked very hard on. Lots and lots of little tearing. I find it soothing. I used the colored pencils a lot on this particular one. It just really fit it, and it was the right colors. You see P coming in there to give some advice. The Posca markers, again, so like I used the black to outline. I used the white just a moment ago to cover up the ace a little bit. They come in very handy. Now I have the Coliro watercolors. I love these so much, and they worked really well. I went through and did a lot of the wings, and then did highlights here and there. Just more pencil work. And what I try to do, it seems like when I watch this back that I'm all over the place. But what I'm trying to do is everything that I build, bring in that element across all the panels. So it's all then seems very cohesive. That brown came in very handy. And of course the lime green is just awesome, wowie zowie, almost candy-like, which was perfect for boho, I think. That was the other thing I was trying to do. Not only bring in the very bright, vibrant, jeweled tones that everybody notices that we love so much. Well, I say we, mainly me. So I try again, not only with the colors and the different media, bring in more textures. And hopefully I have done that, and you'll see me use a lot of embossing folder, especially here later. I don't think I've quite brought them in yet. I was going to use those. I haven't figured out a way to bring them in, so that actually didn't end up in the final project. Kind of same with some of those other little elements. See me moving around and just trying to figure out what fits and what's going to be the next piece brought in. So this was some leftover, this is the crazy stuff that I keep from a card that we made. I think P used glitter and tons of alcohol inks and all kinds of things. It was quite thick. I think it was done on some Yupo paper, but it was the perfect color and went with the dragonfly. And same here, I was just again bringing more of that gold element in and breaking up that dark area there at the top. And there's our dangle. And that was one of the many, I had to scrunch it up even more just to match the size of the final folded accordion. I tried to use that for full pocket, and I just couldn't quite get it in there. I ended up making a couple of different ones, and you'll see those here in a little bit. I loved this butterfly wing, and I moved it around a lot, but it's kind of funny. I kept kind of coming back to the same spot where it ended up. The blues throughout Luis's paper on the steampunk set was really a driving force in this entire project. I love that cyan color. And it led very easily into the other colors, which I think was very boho as well. Obviously, with bright colors, different patterns, different textures. To me, that's really the boho when I think of boho. Again, with Poscas and just some of the chalk-like markers, they added, again, another level of almost texture and color. Because it was very matte, it brings in that different texture. Even though I ended up Mod Podging everything, and everything ended up shining. But it still comes through, I think. I did it both on the flower and the butterfly. And that way you have that nice bookend of the oranges. Kind of giving it a hug. There's some great layering to Luis's papers. So they offer you a nice break here and there, along with some really cool elements to either tear out or use in its full form or full page. I did end up covering up the butterflies on this little pocket just because it felt like there was just too much right there, and I had to bring in a different element. And that's when I went ahead and embossed some of the brushed paper. And I used that throughout, like front, back, all over. And there you see me bringing in even more. So I wish I would have turned that around. Basically, all that is the three-dimensional Mod Podge. And this was like the last thing I did that evening. And I did it over the dragonfly, the fisheye, and the frog eye. It was just such a really cool thing. And then very quickly, obviously, it was the next day. And that's why I was putting my hand over it, because it had dried like 24 hours. Well, not quite 24, but you do want to let that stuff dry. So these were just some images I found. I liked the patterns. They're just weavings. And I felt they really went with where I was going with this. And you'll see here in just a second what I do with them. That was just, again, a little piece left over from a card. We keep those sorts of things. So I have a link below on how to make these 4 pocket folded. The ones that they do in their videos are much larger, obviously, because this is kind of my little mini journal. Everything's more miniature. But I thought it turned out so cool because there was such a great contrast between the 2 patterns. And there were lots of patterns in this because it was almost like a quilt. Then I found some images of pillows that I really liked. I knew I was going to dress them up even more, but these were a perfect start to just, again, creating more of that boho feel that was going to go with the steampunk. used the Posca markers and I think quite a bit of the color pencils too on the pillows. Now, the other little cards that you see there, P actually did with alcohol inks and alcohol markers. She just let me have them, and then I kind of embellished. These are really cool. That tape, which I will put a link down below on how to make that tape and where we got it from. Such nifty stuff and super easy. I did reinforce this area actually quite a bit, not only with glue, but I will come in with some foil and all kinds of things. That thing's not going anywhere. Plus the fact that it was all then Mod Podged over. So those little foil pieces are the same foil that we used to make the beads. They are fantastic to run through the embosser, and they will hold the embossing as long as you put enough glue in there and leave it alone that the glue dries inside of the little embossed areas. More marker work, that's those chalk markers. That's a fantastic tool that you see me use all the time. It's just a clay tool to usually like draw or cut into the clay. You can see that we did some work on the, and I say we because I had done the color work on the back side of the butterfly wing, and then I handed it over to P so she could do more decorative kind of pen work. So it's just with a black pen. That was part of the fish, I believe. Well, that was still some of the stuff that had torn off one of the other panels that's on that little card there that I also went ahead and added both blue and green foil to. Again, using the little pillows, decorations. And altering those. Because most of them had pretty good colors, but I didn't like them like spot on, and I wanted to make them obviously more mine. I just needed something to work with. Speed up the process. Pieces of the sari ends that we used on the dangle, just to bring that element and the texture. It's just like this idea of all the textiles, the richness. I was a little sad with, once it was Mod Podge, how dark it got. I mean, I should have known that it was going to do that, but that was a little bit of a bummer. And there you see the foil beads and a lovely dangle. On that particular one, I backed it there with just dabber napkin. It was funny because when I cut it out there, you'll see that I had to glue it again because it was it was folded. So that one turned out really great after being Mod Podge. It almost looks like leather and has a really neat feel to it. The little angel, I cannot remember what postcard it was from and what artist. P will be mad at me, but that's where the little angel came from. It was just a postcard from an artist. Very well known. Just, I cannot remember for the life of me right now. I love the way that tag turned out. And those were altered playing cards as well. I mean, I think you can kind of tell from the back side of it. And P, what she'd done is made them look like rugs. And again, that was perfect. You can see that one laying over on top of the flowers on that first panel. That's the back side. So once you color it in, it looks like a rug. And these were some little strips she had left over, so I took those. I had 2 of them. I think I only ended up using 1. And then did the napkin that was just a blotter napkin. Used the Poscas, a little bit of the alcohol ink marker, and then I embossed it. That's what you were seeing there. And then it had a really frog or amphibian snake-like texture to it then. Still trying to get the color right on it. That green was a little wowie zowie for me. And then the backside used, again, some of the Brusho test papers that P has so kindly given to me. And what's nice is on the backside, some of the texture comes through as well from the embossing, because I did put that one piece on afterwards. And there I was just trying to figure out. I did use the silver color of the Colero watercolors. Just figuring out kind of what belongs where. You can see that little piece there above the frog. P handed that over to me. Just another element of texture and textile. More little pieces that I had left over. And that's more of just that whole going back through and making sure that all elements are represented to create really cohesive panels. And that way the end product feels like everything flows into one another. That's very important to me. I didn't end up using the ace, and actually P took it back. She was mad that I covered up Maverick. So that's why I scraped it off. But she ended up taking that back, and it looks really, really cool. Hopefully we'll see that in a future project. The flowers in this set are just so great. Fun to color. So this sheet here, I was like, why am I looking for other artwork when we have tons? And had the most perfect stuff from a journal that P did called Always Flowers. So this is her artwork. I just took the picture and obviously scaled it down and used it throughout. It was just the most perfect moment of aha. And I was just looking back at like old Instagram pictures and I was like, that's the thing I need, because I've been looking for some other element to bring in more of that boho feel, but I didn't want to use other people's stuff. And there you are. So you'll see that being used throughout. Almost looked like washi tape in certain areas, which I thought was pretty cool. Just to brighten up that tag, and like I said, even just a little bit of glue that was on there darkened the sari. So that's why I came back with the Colero watercolors, added a bit of gold, and here I am adding the gold again throughout other pieces and panels. Looks really nifty on the pockets. There are parts of these that even in the photographs you'll see, unfortunately, it just doesn't come through. This is one of those things that you go, oh man, it's something you gotta see in real life. I usually hesitate using the alcohol ink markers directly on like printed pages because sometimes it bleeds, but I got really lucky. My dots actually turned out very nice in that area. They're great to use. You can see how I kind of bled off of the page there. I really love that frog area where it just kind of brings that dark bits down into the bright green. These water, I think they're like blendables, yeah. They're great. The tops have started kind of pulling off when you pull the lids off, but I love using those blendable markers. They're perfect for torn edges and just making things either kind of deepen the color or, like it says, blend things together. You can use it on top of the colored pencils, and you'll see me do that quite often in this piece particularly. I kind of do a little bit of colored pencil, then I come back through with those blendables, and it, for whatever reason, blends even the colored pencil. A different set of alcohol ink markers. These are just lighter ones. They also have the problem of like when you pull the lid off that the whole thing comes apart. See there, you can see I did the color pencil, then come back through with that blendable. The lighter colors work really well. I like the, I think there's 3 or 4 in the neutrals. Trimming the eyeballs, the frog's eyeball. It was kind of goopy from the 3-dimensional Mod Podge. I thought I was going to have more of the playing cards show through, but the papers needed to be more in the forefront. So I left little peek throughs. I think on enough of them that you get the idea. The cool little dragonflies and other little bugs throughout the steampunk set are really nifty elements that I highlighted, either like with the gold on the wings or made sure that I came back through with colored pencils to really make them pop and show. I like that whole idea of the natural elements along with the steampunk being very industrial, and then all the flowers as well. Peach Posca marker came in extremely handy on this project. It's probably the most I've ever used that peach color, but it was perfect, and I liked how it acted on the cards because I did not do any sanding or prepping of the card. They were very shiny. Another one of the little bugs that I had cut out, and I came back and even drew in the antennas once I ripped them off. Same thing over there on the butterfly with one of those fine line pins. That's the paper that I had embossed, and that was a perfect pattern too. That was something to kind of keep in mind with the scale of this project, making sure that I had patterns that were small enough that could represent themselves well throughout. And that particular one was really great. It's kind of a diamond almost rug-like, which is a common theme throughout. Just little pieces. I didn't like that the pocket was just kind of there. It hadn't quite become part of that panel yet. So I went through and started doing those little torn pieces, and it was important to have them both in the background and then on top to make it more a part of that panel and feel like, you know, the frog's kind of looking in there and what's in there. And that little bug that is about to get eaten. These are some of the ephemera pockets and belly bands from the kit that you just saw me cut out. And you'll see those again coming up. I didn't actually use that one in that particular spot. I love that panel. And so I struggled with how much to cover it up, or, you know, what to put tuck-wise on top of it. So right now I'm embossing these two just plain, that's all they are, is just cardstock. The blue over there is really cool stuff because it's kind of this shiny, shimmery, which I love, and I use it a lot, and it went perfectly with this. And I used the lighter weight, I think it'll be on the other side. So again, that repetition of color, pattern, texture. And then these were just some little things that I found on the Wikipedia Commons and printed out. They either had something to do with Bohemia or steampunk. These are particularly Bohemia. There was a Bohemian polka, and then like there was traditional Bohemian dress. Colors and patterns went perfectly, obviously. On those particular cards, I used the crocodile, and then on the other sets that I ended up just kind of snipping because I didn't want them to be that rounded. Kind of need to get a new, I don't know if they make them any smaller. I keep doing these mini ones. And even on our artwork that I print out, I come back and do more. So there, I'm just trying to figure out again what to do in those two particular spots, because I want to show what I've already done, but I still love the idea of the pockets or tucks or belly bands, or, you know, places to put things. All of these little things that I'm cutting out now. Just kind of getting placement right on those before I start backing them, moving things around, making sure they have the right home, and that what I'm going to do on the back side is going to then correspond to that particular panel or section. So this is some really neat paper that you see me spraying with the Lindsay's shiny spray. We actually made that, well, Patricia made the original using rusty metal, and then we brought it in digitally and just kind of created these images that we can use for other things. And then just so happened I had gear embossing folder from my friend Christy, She sent us a bunch of them because she has a ton. And use that there. That was the, I think, Vicky Booten gold paste, which is fantastic stuff. And it dries quick. I was actually a little surprised at how quickly it dried. I was thinking I was going to be able to move it around a bit more, and it was like, once it was on there, it was done. So those are my 2 steampunk tucks. Tags. They turned out really cool. Like, once they were Mod Podge, they look really, really neat. More of the blendable markers, that they work great for distressing. I know that, like, P, she uses a lot of the distress inks to do hers. I like the markers. It's just, I guess it's a preference. I like things that are like right there at my hands, and all of the ink pads are kept elsewhere. So that's probably one of the other reasons, is purely accessibility. That's my little cup that I use. So the Mr. Huey sprays, which are just color sprays, are fantastic. I just spray it in the cup and then use my little makeup sponge to dab it around. That's how I do things. I do have some fancy little dauber deals, but I have to use them. You can see how cool the shiny paper is from this particular angle. You can kind of see it reflecting. Just putting more of the embossed brusho paper on there just to tie it all in. I finally made a decision on that particular little spot. And you can see just how much of a difference it makes to come back and just do those little bits of distressing or coloring in, highlighting or shadowing. Because right there you can see it now all seems like it's been there, and that's just how it was. Now here are all of my gods and goddesses. You see Ganesh over there. It took me a little while to kind of figure out the right colors. All of these strips are leftovers from when we make cards. Because if it's a 12 by 12 sheet, a lot of times I end up with these strips of this size, which were perfect. I never did use that cardstock that you saw there at the bottom. It is really cool stuff. It's yellow on one side and green on the other. It's heavy duty. And I didn't think that my little journal could hold it. Space was becoming a worry. More patterned paper, and then I patterned it even more by running it through the embosser. That woven, the kind of basket weave pattern, along with the swirly one there, turned out to be perfect for the cards. Just giving that, again, more textile feel. Came back in with, I believe, both the Lindsay's and also some Ranger Delusions sprays. The sprays don't spray anymore on the Delusions, so I just open them up and paint it on. And that's what you're seeing there, is with the yellow. So they're just little hints here and there of the little sparkles and adding more depth and texture. sort of messed that up, but then it turned out to be kind of a good thing. It looked really cool with adding a little too much of the gold, if there is such a thing. So I know some people are very much against glitter. I am very much for glitter. Love it. I don't mind it. I don't mind it being in and around my house. It makes me happy. I messed this one up. I actually did the backside. So I was like, well, that turned out okay because I didn't love the blue on top of the orange as much as I thought I was going to. So I redo that orange one. But you can see lots of little detailed work there. The Stickles glitter is absolutely hands down some of the best glitter though, because it works really well. That boxy stuff is good, but Stickles outperforms it. You can see I glued down to the blue side there. Do the orange, which I liked much better. It's a little more subtle. I was thinking complementary colors. The Mod Podge. So this was just the one side is done at this point in time. And so before I went to bed, I made sure that I got it all Mod Podge so it would be dry for the next day and I could work on the other side and have this side protected. And that was the one big main reason. It's just the wear, because this is such an interactive piece, the Mod Podge really ensures that all the pieces and parts kind of are around for a while. Because hopefully people will be looking at it. And I know I like to play with them and move the cards around and all of that. And if done in the right way, you can actually get both sides done. P doesn't recommend that, but time is of the essence. So I actually did both sides of everything, all the cards, right then and there. And that board is really quite handy. Now you can see I'm adding an extender because I knew it already. It was getting chunky. And I needed more space. So added that extender in there. And I used some of the end piece that I had left over on the two sides. Now what I'm doing is using the Distress Glaze on the Mod Podge pieces. Is what you saw a second ago there, just to keep things from sticking. Now we're back. Now we're on to the other side and just kind of moving through and checking panels. And I used more full sheets on this side because I knew where I was going with things and I didn't do nearly as much little tearing. Now with that, you saw I left that little piece there. I actually folded the one over to the other so it was front and back, and then left that little part so it could be the hinge. Then put the other piece on top of that. Now this is going to be that strap. I was going to use that embossed piece, but ended up using one of the candy foils to cover the magnet, because this strap's gonna have a magnet on it. I'm sorry about that. And sometimes I try to hide the magnet, and then sometimes I think it's kind of cool to embellish it, I guess. And if I was really thinking about it, I probably would have put it behind the panel, but it's one of those things. There was the little belly band from the Ephemera kit that I thought I was going to use, but just cut out the little flowers, and they ended up having a really nice little home with the lizard. I hadn't realized that my camera had gotten knocked about. So I used the pocket, the fish, I think it was actually a belly band, but I wanted to use it as a pocket, and I wanted him to seem like he was like swimming through the flowers. So there's a better angle here in a moment of how I trimmed him out. I had to cut his tail off, but it ended up being kind of a cool thing. See, there, I realized I needed to straighten things back up. So that is some of that same paper, but I have it in text weight as well. And just thought it would be kind of nifty to, again, repeat that element somehow and have it as the page was tearing off. And then that other flower just really worked well there too. And one of the things that I try not to do is to glue things down too soon, because then it makes it harder to get that cold layered, like you know that one thing needed to be on top of the other. But then there is a point when it's like you have to glue it down. The struggle. So that was one of the fish heads I flipped around because I loved him so much, and I'm like, I need this guy to live here, but he has to go the other way. He in fact got 2 spots. See how that works? Sound effects. And this is where I brought in one of my kind of staple things, is putting a definition in our journals, usually kind of highlighting either the name or certainly the inspiration, which was steampunk and bohemian. So there's the steampunk one. And see how the little fish head flips up. And there he is in his full form, which I love the idea of that. He was kind of swimming around. I had to move him around a bit too because I knew I was going to really love that panel, and it is one of my favorites. So I didn't stick him down where I thought I was going to, and I'm glad that I didn't, because he kind of ended up a little different. You'll see that coming up. Just trimming up some of those edges. Some I like hanging over looking kind of messy. I guess that's part of the junk journalish part for me. I know ours are very different. Definitely not the standard. But this is how I do it. Here was another expander, because I was like, if I did it to the one side, I needed it on the other to hold all of the pockets and things. But the way that this worked out, it was really kind of cool and very easy to do. So I liked that I didn't have to be constrained by the size that I thought it was going to be. And I could have easily added more to the other folds, to the other bins, margins, I guess. I think it's cool that, like I said in the beginning, if I had to do it over again, I might have all the panels going top up. So even if you flipped over, that you would be upright. But there is some cool mirroring that happens in this as well. And so it is fun to move it around. And the section with the bird, obviously it is not like that at all. I just struggled with bringing in some of the green there and getting more depth on that particular panel, because the crane is such a beautiful element in this that he needed to be highlighted. And so I think the end result, I did achieve that. And I wanted to bring in more of like the dots and the flow. I love those circles and the gears. That was fun to work with, and bring in color to those elements and just add more movement with those. So here's what I was kind of alluding to. I needed more there. I didn't end up using the washi tape, but it would have been a cool element to bring in. It's just I had that Brusho paper, and the colors were just so spot on. And added, again, just a little bit more texture by running it through the embosser with the flower pattern to it. I liked that little bit of white on the piece of Brusho paper. It was a nice little element to kind of keep the eye moving, but I didn't want it to be so stark. Bringing in more of the color elements with the color pencils. And I knew on the bird, it had that beautiful blue, but it needed some of the other colors in him. So here in a minute, I start adding more and more into it, and just made him really come to life. Versus just being that piece of paper that I put down. As beautiful as it is, it had to have that same look and feel that all the other panels, to make him seem like he belonged. It's that awesome peach Posca marker again. And so you can see the two tucking, or just peeking out over there with the crane. One of my struggles with that panel down there was to get that curve to kind of S down into the flip down. It took a little time and work with the colors to do it, along with bringing in the other elements, like from the crane, that paper, across to the other panels to keep your eye moving down and around. Here I am trying to, I knew he was going on this panel. I just didn't know exactly how. Because I wanted him swimming towards his friend over there, the other little fish pocket. added the little dots to kind of bring that feel back into. Trying to figure out what I want to do with the backside, because now I've decided that it's gonna be another little strap with a magnet. And I had, again, another printout of just textile stuff. Funny thing is my mom actually has she has a painting that is very similar to those circles. And I forgot to put the magnet in before I did that, so that was an afterthought. It's not perfect, but I was pretty happy with how it turned out. And then I knew there was a piece or a panel that I could kind of patch in, and it was really great because it had the gears on it and it had a bit of the pedal. So it really not only just matched up spot on there, it brought in, again, more of the steampunk element, which I think is one of my little favorite areas, my corners to go visit and ooh and ah at, because that worked out really well. This is the fun of working with some of Luisa's papers. She's just got hidden little things here and there, and when you find them like that, it's kind of fun. It kept bothering me that there wasn't a bit of that teal turquoisey foil up at the top there to help bring it, because it's one piece that, or part that works on both sides, so it had to have elements that made that true. And see, these guys work both ways too, so you can have them extended out, and when you're looking at it on this side, they're above, and then when you fold them up from the other side, then they're top up. This is that kind of S-curvy area where I was talking about, just being able to keep the movement there and not feel like it just was added in and not feel right. I was a little sad about covering up the figure text. I had really wanted to keep that, but in the end it made more sense to bring some of the other elements down into this panel, and that's when it started to kind of come alive. I feel like that fish is just floating through all the little pieces and parts that are what make this journal boho steampunk. Mechanika Saffron. That's what I'm naming her. So they all use flowers. That was what I was telling you about earlier with the journal. That was the cover or inside piece. And P came back and did extra, I think, pencil work on it, just to bring in more of the exact colors that were in this particular journal, and brighten up some of what wasn't printing very well. And part of that is just the photograph that I was using, because this was back when I didn't have the light box that I have now. That's the Martha Stewart glitter paste. Love that stuff. finishing those edges with a Posca marker. I like the look of that. It just makes it seem together, like finished. A few more of the goddess cards, gods and goddesses. Because that panel that is above, again, needed some of the same elements. So the little flip latch, I knew I was going to put some cards in. And I had not the right number anyway for the top one because I didn't glue the thing down, so I didn't have 4, I had 3. So then I wanted 3 with the other. It's just how it works out. That's the distress spray. Those are really great to just add a little extra color. One of the things with those lighter weight cover papers or cardstock is when you emboss them, sometimes they'll crack and leave a little bit of white paper showing through. Sometimes that's fine. It was nice to have those color sprays because I just used that to help cover that up, basically. And then it added a little distressing to it, which I kind of found I liked. I put the white paper there just so that way you guys could hopefully see a little better what I was doing, because my background is getting really messy and I didn't use the glass matte because it reflects and I don't like it in the camera, even though it makes working on this so much easier. It was for you guys. Little touch-ups with the gold. I did them on the gears. Highlighted some of the swirls. Again, just certain little areas enough to keep your eye moving. And one of the reasons I like the gloss Mod Podge is any of the gold watercolor work and sprays, it seems to work better than the matte. The matte will dull it out. See, he's really starting to come to life now. A little crane. I love how this panel turned out too. And it was one of my ones that I struggled with. Because I loved him so much and didn't want to. It required a lot of restraint, I guess. And I like how that element over there draws from one end to the other. Almost like little pieces of seaweed. So originally, I don't know if you guys remember on the gold leaves, feathers, sorry, the feathers, that's the feathers. I had embossed a gold sheet. Originally I thought that that's what I was going to put there, but decided it was way too much. Actually, Pete told me it was way too much, and it didn't match. It would have, that's true. A little bit more of that Delusion spray that doesn't spray anymore, so I just paint it on. Just little areas. It's kind of amazed at how many different products I was able to use, and yet the colors went so seamlessly. I was very happy about that. It's just some pieces I had left over, and I liked the idea that this was kind of like the bird's eye or eyes. I loved those circles. I wanted to highlight them in a way. So this is the little, what I'm kind of calling little feather plume tucks. Right there in that feather. Those were just leftover ends from the other cards. And I wanted to just use them up. I was a little worried that that one pillow being kind of the odd shape was going to be weird, but I think it was one of my favorite out of those cards. And the fact that it had the peacock pattern was pretty awesome. Doing some more embellishment work on those little cards with the between the glitter and the Posca markers, making it more vibrant, changing up the patterns a bit just to match more of what's on the other side of the card. Because there were certain colors that I was like, oh, that's just a little ugh, and I need it to be, I wanted it to match up. Or certain things to pop out a bit more. That certainly was the case on the peacock one. I wanted those to feel and look more feather-like, or like just, you know, things you would find. You'd put it in a little feather pocket. And all of that is some of the distress spray that I sprayed into a cap. I keep all the caps for that sort of thing. And then this is some fibers that I got. Thank you, Amy. She sent those to us. And it was perfect. It's almost like a little moon, and it's fun to touch. And I used some of the cheesecloth material fibers over there on the corner. This is a fun journal to touch because of all the different embossing and textures and fibers and just layers. Just finishing it up with the Mod Podge. I was worried about the bird, but everything turned out okay. And I know I kind of play it fast and loose with the Mod Podge there in the pockets. That was just a painter's knife. And if you just kind of do it at the right time, and I usually leave a little bunch in the pockets to hold stuff, but if it stands up, then you can Mod Podge it like this. Where like P would Mod Podge every piece and then come back and put it together. I don't have that time in my life. I wish I did, but I don't. So I just kind of do it when it's done. And like I said on the first round, I will paint both sides. I will get it done. And see how I bent it up just a little bit, because the nice thing about the Mod Podge is once it's dry, you can form it and straighten it back out. So And if it's on things that you can just kind of lift up, works out pretty nice too. And there we have it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you can come back and watch the next one. Subscribe below. And thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.